Hi, I'm Karen Cherry Brown. Welcome to another episode of Prevailing Through Pain. Today, our lovely guest is Sonya Martin. Sonya is a manager in a local hospital in Dallas-Fort Worth area where she has 21 years of sterile processing experience. Sonya, we are so excited to have you on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, Sonya, I would jump right on in. I'm going to ask you if you can tell our viewers a little bit about your humble beginnings.
Okay. Humble beginnings started in 1972, back in Memphis, Tennessee. Born with a twin brother.
Didn't know that.
Yes, I have a twin brother. His name is Kevin. And I have one older sister. Her name is Stephanie. So it was a family of five with my mom and my stepfather.
Mm-hmm.
They were together from the time my brother and I were 6 months until they both passed away. And life was okay. So we thought we had a functional family, you know. We lived down the street from my grandmother. So as kids, we stayed with my grandmother most of the time. And my mom and my stepdad, they stayed at home most of the time. When we were 8, my grandmother passed. So we got to spend all of our time at home. And that's when we learned that our family was so dysfunctional. At the age of 8, I was like, wow. Grew up, born and raised in Memphis. Grew up there and graduated high school there.
Let me ask you a question. Where you said you thought, because I used to always tell people, I thought we were like the Cleavers on Leave It to Beaver. And then when my grandmother died, but I was an adult and I realized, oh my God, we aren't that perfect family I thought we were. So at 8 years old, what made you realize something was different?
I guess the things that we didn't really see being in my grandmother's house all the time. So once we came home, we learned that our parents, they fought. Like literally physically fought all the time. And it was like almost traumatic to say like surely this doesn't happen in every other family. And then, you know, you go to friends' houses and church members' houses and that's not happening.
They're mad.
Right. But in my house, at the drop of a dime, a fight breaks out. So that's when we kind of learned that we were like this major dysfunctional family in the neighborhood. Everybody knew but us. Everybody in the neighborhood knew but us. And I guess because my grandmother kind of kept us sheltered away from that, which is why all the time she wanted us at her house. Right. You know, we went to school from there. We went to bed there. We ate dinner there. Grandmother's house was our house. We went to visit my parents, which was literally 7 houses up the street.
Okay.
So yeah.
Your mom's mom.
This was my mom's mom. Yeah. So that's when we realized that we were like the neighborhood dysfunctional family. Yeah.
So teenage years?
Teenage years were okay. So when my grandmother passed at the age of 8, her neighbor across the street from her kind of took it upon herself to get us involved in church. Because my grandmother we used to go to church with my grandmother. So Miss Perkins, she was like, well, your grandmother's gone. Come and go to my church. So I remember every Saturday morning she would come knocking on the door because they were having something at the church that she was a member of. And my brother and my sister, they were like, we're not going. We're watching WWE. We're not going. So they would be really, really quiet. And she would just knock. And eventually she would go away. But she came back every Saturday. So I decided I'm going to her church.
Yeah.
Best decision I ever made.
Thank God for Miss Perkins.
Yes, Augustine Perkins. At this church, so it kind of gave me, I guess, grounding. It was full of people that kind of adopted me into their families. So I was adopted into families, functional families, in my definition of functionality. So functional families that helped me through high school. So high school and teenage years were pretty good I spent all of my time at church or all of my time at one of my church members' houses to kind of get away from the dysfunctionality. While everybody else were doing parties, and like my brother and my sister, they were doing parties and the typical teenage stuff, getting in trouble, stealing the car, cutting school, different things like that. I was like giving all that I had for church all the time. So that was high school. I went to a high school across town away from where the neighborhood that I grew up in, because we grew up in the area called South Memphis, which was just like the bad part of Memphis. So I went to a high school across town, which was Central High School, and the school was great. The kids there were great, but I had to come home. So even though teenage years were great, people kicked at me for, oh, you think you're too good to go to this school? You know, why you got to go across this? So I had to fight quite often to like, it was either fight or get fought, you know, but I made it through that. After high school, I wanted to go to college or didn't know if I wanted to go to college or what I wanted to do. I just knew I needed to get out of here. So went to community college for one semester, and it was like, I'm in college, but I still got to go back to this house. So
now this is the house that your stepfather still in?
Yes, yes. So I decided to join the military. One day I woke up and just said, I'm going to join the military. So I called a military recruiter and set up an appointment to go down. I took ROTC in high school, so I had already taken the testing to go in to be able to enlist into the military. So I did that, go to my appointment, had talked to the recruiter online, and when I went to my appointment, it was a guy sitting in the back of the recruiting office, and he was a naval recruiter. And I remember saying, oh my God, I hope that is the man I talked to on the phone. And it was. Okay. And he enlisted me in the military, and I came back home after boot camp, and we kind of, I guess, hooked up, started a relationship.
That's him.
Yes. He was a nice looking man. I was like, oh, it was almost like when people say love at first sight or infatuation at first sight, it was that. So went to the military, came back. We kind of started this relationship. First time we connected, I ended up pregnant. The very first time, I was like, oh my God. We went through the motions. We had a son, and unfortunately, our son died after birth. But our relationship continued, and we actually ended up getting married. However, before that, finding out prior to getting married and having our happily ever after, found out so many things about him. He was married. Him and his wife were living in a house, cohabitating. And here I am. Now I'm like so madly in love with this man. What do I do? So he ended his marriage, and we ended up getting married.
Okay.
And it was okay for a minute, but it didn't last. It didn't last. But for me, initially, I'm trying to like get this functional family. My main thing, I had decided when I grow up, I'm going to have this perfect family. It's going to be functional 100%. I'm going to have the perfect husband, the perfect children, just the perfect life, total opposite of what my mom had. And that was what I was seeking. So with this guy, we were married. We had 2 additional children, which are my 2 older daughters. So we were married about 5 years because they're stair steppers, had one in 83 and one in 84. And one day just woke up and it was like, we had ups and downs, but it was like, this is just not working. And I already knew why this was not working. You got into a relationship with somebody else's husband.
You know, it's interesting you say that because as you were saying that, I was kind of thinking about my situation. So my ex-husband had an affair, and the person lived right down the street from us. I didn't know who she was, but she knew who I was. And so that bothered me after I found out, because I felt, you see all those Lifetime movies where the wife gets killed or shot because of the girlfriend and didn't even know, and that, it was anything going on. But the thing is, I remember talking to her when I did find out, and I just said, woman to woman. And then I was going to ask you that. I said, I told her, I said, because the way you did it, unfortunately, you're going to always feel uneasy, wondering, is he doing that when he's gone too long? The other. And so you said about the uneasy feeling. At some point, did you kind of think maybe?
I think at various times in the relationship, because he was still a recruiter. So it's like, I know what happened with me. So you, in the back of your mind, you always kind of feel that way. Even though we got married, we had, a home and children, and we were raising our children together. It just didn't feel right. This was not my forever after. So we divorced, and life went on, so it's like, okay, so now you're a single mom with 2 children. What happened
Was he at the time?
They were 4 and 5. They were 4 and 5. And actually, they may have even been 3 and 4, because we were together a total of 5 years.
Okay.
So had to move back home with my mom and my stepdad.
And then now 2 kids.
Yeah, with 2 kids, with 2 additional kids. And it was okay because now I'm older. So, and I know what to expect, but you just kind of get protective of what's yours, of your kids. So we didn't stay there long, but it was just a transition until we could get back on our feet. Moved out, started working. I remember working in retail. I remember working basically retail. And one day I decided that I need to come up with a career, right? So started working at an insurance company. They were hiring. I had no experience. I remember I got the position through a staffing company. I signed up for a temporary staffing company. And the lady said, well, I don't have anything right now, but receptionist at an insurance company. I was like, okay, I'll take it. Did that for about a week. And after a week, it was somebody on out sick. And then that person was coming back. And I was like, oh, can't you be sick a little longer? And she was coming back, and they said, well, we have need for help in our mailroom. And in the mailroom, you're just opening insurance claims and separating them and passing them on to the adjudicators where they can pay the bills. So I was like, okay, I can do that. Sure. That lasted 3 years.
Oh, wow.
In that position. And then I started paying insurance claims in the company. And while paying insurance claims in the company, I'm like, what is this? What is a UFO, whatever? All these medical terms that I could not pronounce. And I'm either denying these claims or paying these claims for these people. So it kind of got me interested in healthcare or surgery. I wanted to know what I was denying, especially if I had to deny a claim. I wanted to know what I was denying. So searched. I wanted what can I learn quickly? I don't want to do 4, 6, 8 years of school. So a friend of mine told me about surgical technology. So that's how I got my start in healthcare. I went to a 12-month program for surgical technology and graduated surgical technology. Let me back up for a minute. Okay. After I got divorced from my first husband, I met my second husband. Okay.
And how much time was in that?
Maybe about 2.5 years. So I met him within the 3 years that I was working at the insurance company. So I met this husband, and life was great. life was grand. So I thought it was perfect at first, and he showed me everything that I was seeking in a mate, right? And then we ended up being pregnant with my youngest daughter. And I remember we were going to my church, and my pastor was like, "You shouldn't have this baby out of wedlock. You shouldn't do that. You should be married." So honestly, I think if my pastor hadn't been so
adamant about
yeah, and like you're a woman of God and different things, I probably never would have married this guy. But we did get married. And after I said I do, all the skeletons came out the closet, Karen. He did drugs. I had no idea. It for like the whole time we were together, I had no idea. So he did two of the things that I'm like, I never wanted to ever date anybody that did drugs because I know how that can tear a family apart. And I never wanted anybody date anybody that sold drugs because you're helping tear a family apart. So he did both of those things. And when we said I do, my life just kind of crumbled slowly but surely. And I found myself accepting things that I said I would never accept, right? For two reasons. You want to keep your family together. You think you can change this person
Why do we think
for
we can do
sure.
that?
And then you're embarrassed more than anything, right? Because some of the things now, as after the fact, you start saying, yeah, I noticed this, but I didn't put two and two together, especially because I wasn't exposed to stuff like that. So I was still able to go to school. He went through his drug phase. He would get clean. It's like, okay, we're back on track. Went through his drug phase again. He would get clean. Okay, we're back on track. And I dealt with this for about another 3 years, I guess, 3 or 4 years. And I was able to go to school. He was like, okay, just quit your job and go to school since you want to do surgical tech. So I was able to do that. I was at the end of the 12 weeks of the surgical tech school and my life just crumbled. And when I've always heard people say how one episode can literally like change your life. One night with this person, one night I woke up or the Lord woke me up. And the voice was just as clear as I'm talking to you now and just was like, Sonya, I need you to walk through your house as quietly as you can. I'm like, okay, because normally if I wake up and my husband is not in bed, I'm like, hey, can you bring something from the kitchen? Right, or something like that. But he was like, no, I need you to walk through your house as quietly as you can. So I did that. And I walked in on something that I would never walk and wish on anybody. My person that I love, my husband, was sexually assaulting my daughter. My 11-year-old daughter at the time. And literally the bottom fell out of life at that point. So that night, my world changed. My two older kids, they went to stay with their dad because I had to call him, and he was on the Memphis Police Department. So he's like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And I'm like, just, take the kids. And I couldn't fight that at the time because I'm like, I couldn't even protect them right up under my nose. So I, take them. So they ended up staying with their dad. And then my youngest daughter and I called my best friend that night, and her husband came right over, which were also my pastor and their first lady. So the first lady is my very best friend. And my daughter and I, my youngest daughter and I, we kind of left that night and we stayed with them for a year. I was, again, at the end of my 12-week from class, and I was like, what am I going to do? I had a teacher. She called to check on me because I didn't report to class for a while. And God bless her soul, she still let me graduate. She was like, nope, you're going to finish this program. She did what she needed to do on paper. So I was able to graduate. I was able to get my hours, even though I was technically short some hours. She fixed it where I could continue on.
And she even know what you were going through?
She did. My sister was going to the school.
Okay.
So my sister explained to her what had happened. So when I did muster up the courage to go up, she was like, you're going to finish this program. Take all the time you need. I just need you to report to the clinicals. She said, I just need you to, even if it's just one day, I just need to be able to say you were there. Whoever her connection was at the hospital. So I was able to muster up the strength to go to the one day of clinical, and I graduated. I graduated.
Yes, I say those are those angels.
They are. They are. I was able to graduate, and at that particular hospital, they hired me as a surgical tech. Every day, getting up, going to work, and my friends were helping me with my daughter. So every day, getting up, going to work, and I was just so broken and inside. I don't even know how I muster to get up to go to work every day.
Were you able to get help for your daughter? You know, and I asked this because you were saying the shame part of it, and even I think in a lot of African American homes, therapy, stuff like that, that's taboo.
It is. She did go through some therapy, and she did her individual therapy, and then we did group therapy, but not a lot, not as much as we needed to. I will admit that, and it affected. That situation changed all of our lives, including my youngest daughter, who didn't get any therapy, but should have. Because you went to bed with a family of 5 people. You wake up, it's just you and your mom. And then my older daughters, it's like, it changed our lives tremendously that night. But we did get some therapy, but I know it was not the amount that we needed to get over or to be able to get through this situation. Relationships just were never the same, even with me and my children. My ex-husband and I, or it damaged a lot of relationships. But we learned to push on, because I watched my mom, go through everything she went through, but every single day she got up, she went to work, life goes on, and I'm like, oh my God, you just got crap out last night, and here you are. So that was the expectation. Yes, that was the expectation to get up and go on. It took me a while. Living in my pastor's house, I didn't go to church for 8 months. I was like, I shut God out. I was like, of all people that you let this happen to, me. And I've been like a faithful person since I was 8 years old. So we just pushed through. Took me about 8 months to get to get the ability or the strength to get up and to be in full function. I was just existing for 8 months. After that, you go through legal battles. You go through, because he was arrested. He did go to jail for quite a while. So you go through the legal battles, and then after 8 months, it was like, okay, you still have children. You still have to build on those relationships and take care of your children. And I've always told them, God says you have 24 hours to cry about it. And then you got 2 choices, either die with the situation or shake it off and move on. And I had to keep playing that in my head, And I
hold that thought right there. We're going to take a sponsor break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Do you have a powerful story of perseverance? Have you triumphed over pain and want to share your story with the world? We're looking for inspiring guests to join us on the Prevailing Through Pain podcast. Head over to KarenSherry.me/guest. Fill out the form and let us know your story. Your voice could be the one to inspire others. Your experience can be the one to lift up someone else. Go to KarenSherry.me/guest.
All right, and we're back. So I love the 24 hours that you said you still use that, but you were getting ready to say something. I hope I didn't think you.
I think after the 24 hours, which turned into 8 months for me, even though I was existing. I wasn't living. So it took me 8 months to get back into the land of the living. After that 8 months, I just started praying more, asking God for strength, to help me rebuild these relationships, to help me get over the embarrassment, because I had done nothing. It took me a long time to realize that you did not play a part in this. You didn't say, "Here's my child, do what you want with her." So I had to forgive myself, and it took a very, very long time to do that. After that, I was working at the hospital. They hired me as a surgical tech, and that's where I found my third husband. At that hospital, it was a man that was asking about me, and one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, Mr. Berry asked about you." And I'm like, "Who is Mr. Berry?" And he was a floor guy, so he only worked nights at the hospital. And I was on call one weekend and ran into him in the hallway and broke the conversation. He was a well-groomed man, so I complimented him on his beard, because I'm a beard girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "Your beard is on point. Your barber, he does an excellent job." And excuse me, he said, "Yeah, Jesse, he's all right. He's been doing my hair for a very long time." And I said, "Jesse?" I said, "I have a brother named Jesse, and he cuts hair." And turned out it was the same person. So my mom, even though it was me, my brother, my sister, throughout the years, my little cousin came along. So my mom raised him, Jesse, and then his little sister came along, and my mama raised her, which is Jazzy. And we also got a stepsister that was brought into the mix when we were in junior high school. So we went from a family of 5 to a family of 8. So come to find out that my brother's cutting his hair, and then my brother started calling me saying, "Will you please go out with this man? Because he is in here every other day getting his hair, his beard trimmed, so he can look good when he comes to work." So we started talking at the hospital, doing lunch, going out to dinner, and he was a pretty nice guy. And we ended up getting engaged after about maybe a year and a half. And we were engaged for probably 7 years. Within the 7 years, life was okay. Mm-hmm. I really had no complaints about life. The only thing is, as I was getting older, he was getting older. There was an 11-year gap between us. So as I'm getting older and my kids are getting older, I'm like, I'm gaining more freedom, right? But he had done everything.
He's ready to sit down.
Yes. So we were not even, or our expectations of life were like totally, totally different. But we went on. In the relationship, I decided that I was going to travel. Didn't know how I was going to travel. And I started hearing about traveling healthcare professionals. So I was still a scrub tech, and I had a leg break at the hospital. And when I broke my leg, I was able to get into sterile processing during my recovery phase. The OR nurse was like, "Hey, we can use help in sterile processing if you need to come back to work, help out in that area." So I was okay with that. And when I got into sterile processing, it was like the light bulb went off. After 2 weeks of being in there, I decided that's what I wanted to do in sterile processing. So I learned all I could in sterile processing, and decided to travel, and talked about traveling with my husband, and he was totally set against it. He's like, "No, you're not going to travel. My wife is not going to be out here doing this," and da-da-da. I'm like, "Well, that's what I want to do, so that's what I'm going to do." So I took on a traveling contract, and I don't want to say traveling ruined my marriage with him. I can't really put it all on traveling. I just think it just gave him more freedom to do the things that he wanted to do, which were not, for me, what a married man should have been doing, right? You're spending your time And the only way I found out what he was doing was I was home on in between accounts, and only for 3 days. And it was the New Year's. And in those 3 days, he was like rarely home. And I'm like, what's going on? I said, okay, well, it's the holidays. Everybody's trying to meet and see, people. So we were supposed to meet for a lunch, and he didn't show up. So I'm like, okay, where are you? Go home. His phone is home. And I don't know, when the Lord wants to reveal something to me, he just take all the blinders off and hit me hard. So a name popped up in my head and was like, look up this address of this person. And I did. And I drove by their house, and my husband was there. And so when they realized I was outside, he came outside, and we went home, and that was a big argument. It turned into a fight. A physical fight. And I had never been in a physical fight with a man ever. And it turned into a fight. And that threw me, because I'm like, I know what I watched my mom go through. So I knew that was the end of marriage, that one time. So when I left Memphis, Tennessee, and that next morning, because I was due to fly out the next morning, I'm like, you can even wait 24 hours. I knew I would never go back to Tennessee.
Now, what was your youngest at this time?
She was with me, but when I was traveling, she would stay with me. She would stay with my mom. And I think actually at that time, she had graduated high school, because for prior to me coming here, she traveled with me. She did online high school. Okay. Because the schools were calling me saying, Alicia is doing this in school. She's not showing up. And I'm like, okay, I know how to fix that. So I pulled her out of traditional school. We did online school her last 2 years of high school. So she traveled around with me. And that's my humble beginning.
Oh, that is, you said a whole lot of strength in things where you were saying like embarrassment, because we do take on what someone else does and take ownership of that,
yes.
Because I thought about my ex-husband. I went through therapy, I don't know why I tried to, and she said, okay, well, why are you taking on all this ownership? You didn't cheat, he cheated. Mm-hmm. When you said you went to the house, because I remember it was pages back then, a house with the cell phones, we didn't have all that. And this number kept coming up in his pager, right? And same thing, I was working 3D11. And I remember he kept saying he was going over this friend that they had a little business together, side business together, and he was over his house all the time. And I remember calling Andy one night, and Andy said, Karen, now, you're a smart woman. You're a smart woman. And that's all he said. I went through the telephone book when I came home that night at 11. I guess I got home about 11:30 or whatever. And found that number and went through the telephone book. Thank God her last name started with an L, because I literally went through every phone and I found that number. Then it was in a city outside of where I lived, where we didn't have GPS or anything. I went to the city. I drove to that city, and I stopped at a convenience store, and I said, do you know what this address is? And the guy said, yes, the project's down at the end of, so I'm going down there. Now, it was probably about 4 or 5 hours from the time I, went through the book and then found. And so then I saw the car with mildew on it. I said mildew would do from where it had sat there. Yeah. And I think, how in the world?
Right.
But it's like that adrenaline kicks in and this, that, and other. And then same thing. I had a car phone. So I called that number, and the girl answered the phone, and I said, and I didn't know which place it was. I just saw where the car was. And I said, tell my ex-husband that, I'm outside. And so I heard her say, Karen's at and you could hear the phone dropping. And then that she looked out to see if I was really out there. And I knew which one it was. Now, the parking lot was way back here. It was like even a little bit of incline. How I got from where the car was to inside that door when it opened, I don't know. But it's like, I was like Superwoman from here to yeah. But I'm saying the things that we do, where we take the ownership, I look back and laugh, because look, I know what he lost out on.
Exactly.
And I'll say the same thing with all of those trials and tribulations you went through. It made you the strong woman you are today. And they still looking out the window saying, where'd she go?
They are. And you know, it's so funny. I still communicate with each of these ex-husbands.
Really?
Each of them, even the one where my youngest daughter's father, I communicate with him because she loves him in spite of, you know, she's his only daughter, and her son is his only grandson, and he says those are his most prized possessions, and I get that. So I communicate with them, you know, on a as needed basis, and I harbor no anger or animosity, and a lot of people do not understand that. A lot of people do not understand, how can you not be angry, you know, but God, you know, he
And this makes sense when you said not get angry. I think it's that when you got through the healing process, and like you said, but God, and that's when you know that you've gone through the healing process, when you're not angry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, ended up in Texas. In Texas, my life changed. Where everybody else had been on top and Sonya was way down here. After that episode, I decided to move Sonya to the top before anybody. And I love my children. I do. I love all of them 100%. But I'm on top.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember after getting here, after about a year and a half or 2 years, my middle daughter, she was like, Mom, you have changed. And I said, I have. You're right. I have. I've put me on top. And me meaning my peace, my satisfaction, what makes me happy, my wants and desires come before anybody's at this point. During my time here, I found husband number 4. Husband number 4 is so much different than husband 1, 2, 3. He supports me in everything that I do, or everything that I want to do. I can say, yeah, I think I want to walk on the moon, and he'll say, what you need me to do? You know, so I appreciate that. He's a little different than any of my past relationships. He's carefree. He don't let little things bother him. And he just encourages me to be the best me I can be. And so,
how long have you gone to Texas?
you know what? I got here January of 2016. I met him the end of January of 2016. And I will never forget, I was still wearing my wedding ring at the time. And we were at the store, and he said, I know you married because I see the rock on your hand. I just want to say you're a nice looking lady. Oh, boy. And we've been talking ever since then.
You're like, this thing? No.
we talked, and we were friends. We were friends.
And you met in the store?
We met in the store.
I love it.
Yes. And literally, we've been rocking since day one. And having to tell him I was married and telling him about the different guys and everything. And he was like, well, you know what? Because I couldn't understand how you, as a little kid, when you form in your mind the type of family you want to have, the type of men you're going to meet in your life and different things like that, how you end up with all these opposites of what you were desiring. And he was like, well, you know, and every person that I've ever dated, I've married. So I haven't did a lot of dating in my life. Every date has turned into a husband. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but my husband explained it to me one day. He was like, that's because you're a good pick. You are a good pick. They picked good. You just didn't pick good. You got so infatuated with them, and they were selling you what you wanted. Yes.
I believe that.
and you were just a good pick. He was like, I promise you were, because men are very selective, very, very selective when it comes to picking women, and you were just a good kid. So we dated for a long time, and we got married in 2022, July 2022, and we've been a couple since 2016. 2016, after I got here. I often tell people when you're meeting people and you're in that early relationship stage, how you get the giggles and the butterflies. I still have those today for him. I still have those today. So,
Had he ever been married?
He has. He's been married. He has 3 adult children, 5 grandchildren, and then my 3 adult children and 2 grandchildren. So we're just a well mixed up, blended family.
And I just about, I think when I said any of them married, because I think both of you were probably, at a more mature point in your life. And so being able to, for him to probably reflect on things that he wanted to do differently if he ever got married again. And so you as well. And so I think people say that, you can get married young. And I know people that got married teenage years and still stay, together all those years, that they never said what the marriage was like all those years. But I think we learn to appreciate each other more when we're older because of the trials and tribulations, the hiccups maybe we went through, early, and we know what we don't want and we know what we want. And I think I can agree with happy that you're in this chapter of your life.
Yes, ma'am. Enjoying it. Professionally, you're able to, it's amazing to me how personal baggage can affect all areas of your life, professionally, romantically. And I think in January 2016, when I just decided to put me on top, I've grown professionally and able to come out of, I don't want to say hiding or come out of my comfort zone. And my comfort zone was always in the back of the room, never having the strength or the confidence to say what was really on my mind. Even if I didn't agree with something, I would just say, oh, okay, we're going to do this, and I know it's because of the past relationships and the past hurts and the past ups and downs that I've gone through. You just learn to adapt. So I'm in my season of not adapting. If I don't like it, I'm going to let you know. I do not like it. If it's not in line with what I want to do, we're not going to do this. So just finding your strength and getting your courage. But it took a long time. It took a long time.
And I'm not saying this to throw you off, but I know at one point in your life, I think you were a little unhappy with me.
I was.
So I'm saying it means even more to me that you're here, doing this. And even with that, I remember when we had a conversation when you let me know that you were no longer, you let that go. You were no longer upset with me. And I don't hold those things, those kind of things personal. But for me, it meant a lot, like I said, because if it was something that was bothering you, that you were like, where you said, no, this is not, I'm moving on. So kudos to you.
Yes.
For, I like I'm telling you, I love seeing you on, Facebook because you just look like you are in a happy space, a good space. And I believe when we're in those spaces, God blesses us, continuously blesses us in those spaces, because I feel like when we let things block that, God can't come through and give us what he wants to give us, but we're holding on to something. So, and, and I, like I said, I want the world to know that people care. It's okay to be in those spaces where you're upset with someone, but don't let that stop you from reaching whatever it is that, God has out there for you.
I agree. It takes A lot. I think it's just reflections, for me to when I was able just and literally it's just one night I was just jotting. And I was on strolling the internet and jotting, and I came across your documentary, right? I had already heard about the documentary. I was working a job one night and second job, and I said, was sitting in my car, I said, I'm gonna watch this documentary. And I watched the documentary and I was like, I never knew her story. Like I knew bits and pieces. You hear bits and pieces, but I never knew like your humble beginnings, basically. I never knew that. And I was like, wow, we had so much in common. And I honestly feel like watching that documentary allowed me to just say,
See the human side of me?
right. So I was able to just say, Karen ain't really did nothing to me. Girl, move on. Let it go. And I did. And I think I texted you that night too, at probably 3:00 in the morning, and sitting in my car after watching that.
And I think it was on a Saturday, well, it would have been Sunday morning, I guess. That's when I got up to go to church. I saw the text and it made me smile.
Okay. Okay. But life has been, for me, in Texas, I tell people when you travel to different areas or you move to new locations, you can be who you want to be because people don't know your story. Nobody in Texas knew my story. Right. Even though, you stand in front of people now and they see this all put together person, they don't know 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I was broken in a million pieces. And I literally had to glue those pieces together one piece at a time before I could be the person that you see today. And I always try to be encouraging to people. I'm getting to the point now where I'm able to share my story more without the embarrassment, especially the issue with my daughter. That's probably my most embarrassing thing that I had to get over. Like I let her down. And people judge you as a parent when things happen to your children. Like you could have done something differently, or you should have seen this coming, or different because I've asked myself those same questions. But being able to share my story and talk about it more, it makes you feel better. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel better. And then you realize there's more people out there with
the same. And by telling your story, I also feel that it helps someone, if you're thinking something is off, then check, believe in your instincts.
Yeah.
And, in your case, like you said, you woke up and said, but you were able to stop.
Yes.
That's the thing. Because I hear stories where someone told me, from the time they were 6 to the time they were an adult when they were able to, to stop it. So, I just, I'm glad you were able to shake that off, move on.
Yes.
And thank you so much for sharing your story, because you don't know how many people sharing your story, whether it's hopeless in relationships, whether it's, a job thing, whether it's thinking how to get up and relocate or whatever the story may be. So I want you to look in that camera and tell the earlier years, Sonya, what you would tell that person today.
Oh, wow. There are going to be struggles. There are going to be ups and downs. Just find your inner strength to get through it and hold on to your faith and never let it go. And it'll help you get through it.
So what's next?
I'm writing a book. I woke up one morning and told my husband I wanted to write a book. He said, "You got something to write about?" I said, "I do have something to write about." So I just gave him a synopsis of what the storyline is. And he said, "Okay, I think that'll be good." So I'm writing a book. The title of the book is Her Name Was Never Hers. It is fictional, but as my husband say, it's fictional, but it's a little you in there as well with some of your story or your past situations. So I'm looking for it to be released end of October. end of October. So that was
never hers.
her name was never hers.
I love that.
Slim.
All right. Well, I know you'll do it, and I know it's going to be great. So thank you for being our healthcare hero.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Hi, I'm Karen Cherry Brown, and if you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.